Hey guys, you looking to be successful at your 2018 fantasy football drafts? And we've got you covered here with the 2018 Draft Loadout with information like my guys, bust candidates, sleepers, deep sleepers, rookie splash, value candidates, and even the loadout software with over 10 years of information packed into a software app for your mobile phone, tablet, or your PC. Make sure you head over to thehateful8ff.com, click on the average donation tab, and sign up via our Patreon account.
Welcome Average Joe Nation from around the globe. Props to you for staying up to date and keeping in the know. Fantasy football, man, very soon you'll reign. The knowledge that these three guys have, man, it is insane. Fantasy football talk, hateful eight, they wear the crown. Hold it down, Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli, hold it down. Pulling up to LB Design Studio, we're getting loud. Season 2, headphones on, red light go, break it down.
Welcome back to the Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast with your host. I'm Pickle, and with me as always, Blackburn.
What up, Average Joe Nation?
Yeah!
And Trimboli.
The Italian is back, as Thacker would say it.
Yes.
Back in his throne.
Back on his throne in his chair. So we just want to tell you guys this week, we're starting a new series. It'll be a 2-part series. This week, the series itself is called Run Pass Option. So RPO, as you would know. And this week is the guys that we do not like. So in theory, it's the guys that we're swiping left, the players that we will not be drafting this week specifically. So just a couple players each that we decided that there's no way we're going to be drafting them for whatever the reason is. So
for a Bachelor reference, they will not be getting my rose today.
There you go. So congrats on the show reference.
Wow, you like that?
I did.
I got more.
I like that. Kirk Cousins.
Now I'm done.
I'm done already.
Who am I kidding?
That was it. I waited all week just to say that. As always, don't forget to follow the show's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. And now on to Fantasy News and Notes.
Fantasy News and Notes.
All right, Fantasy News and Notes presented by Body Armor Super Drink. Superior hydration for today's athlete. Check them out at drinkbodyarmor.com and your local convenience center. Store.
Convenience stores.
Sorry.
A.K.A. Kroger.
Meijer.
Walmart.
Whatever.
Wherever. Gas stations. I got them too. So the first one, it's obviously everyone's heard about it unless you've lived under a rock for the past 48 hours.
It's probably uncomfortable.
Probably would be uncomfortable under the rock.
What's SpongeBob's running mate? He lives under a rock.
He lives on
Patrick. SpongeBob.
pineapple under the sea. All right, so he does live under a rock, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Shocking. Okay.
Boom.
Bills running back LaShawn McCoy suspected of domestic violence. So his ex-girlfriend apparently is claiming to be the victim, and McCoy obviously is denying the situation. So, which is not a surprise. Why would the guy openly just say, "Yeah, I did it"? If he didn't or did, either way. But if it is proven true, or it's proven true, obviously the season's over for him, and more importantly, the career is over. So
if it's true, yeah.
If it is true, but I mean, I just hope that the situation for both. I mean, it just stinks. It's just not the situation. The pictures and everything. We won't go into detail, but they're not. It's just not a good situation going forward, and it just seems like it's probably going to be a pretty big thing to figure out what's going on and who's telling what and what's true and what's not for both sides. So all I know is if it is true, LaShawn McCoy is probably done with football.
I agree.
So, and the Bills, whether that comes down from the NFL or comes down from the Bills cutting him, it's over.
Right.
So
it's too early to pass judgment. We're going to let the legal system take their turn, like the NFL take theirs. But, domestic violence is nothing you ever want to be a part of.
No. So, and then the other main note that we got for this week, Browns wide receiver Jarvis Landry suggests that Tyrod Taylor should be the starting quarterback. So
I agree.
I agree as well.
I don't like him, but I agree.
Right. During an interview on the Rich Eisen show, Landry did state that Taylor looks amazing. He also said his leadership, his arm, his accuracy, and he is ready to be the guy. So he's a starting quarterback, and I'm sure of that. Obviously, the decision is up to the head coach and the offensive staff and stuff like that, but I'm sure they'll be highly impressed with what he's done through OTAs and minicamp. So do you think this crushes Baker Mayfield's high ceiling confidence? Because, I mean, that guy is just oozing with confidence left and right. So
this isn't going to change anything for him.
I think it's better for him because I think it gives him a chance to kind of learn the system, to get really truly acclimated to the NFL game speed. And it's nothing that I think he's still probably one or two most talented quarterbacks that came out of the draft this year, between him and Lamar Jackson, honestly, athletically. So I just think that it's probably best that he sits behind Tyrod Taylor for as long as they can keep him sitting on the bench. I know eventually, whether it be potentially injury or the fact that the team is just taking a giant dump on the season record-wise, they could potentially have him in
the Cleveland way.
Right. They could potentially have him in by game 7 or 8 of the year. So I just hope for his sake he gets as much time as possible because I think that's what helped Carson Palmer. I mean, Carson Palmer is an athlete, but he was a totally different quarterback style. But still, he got a whole year of sitting on the bench, and I think that helped him career-wise, honestly. So, I mean, anytime a young quarterback can get a chance to sit and learn the game speed, learn the playbook, and be able to kind of learn from a veteran is always a good thing, and versus the percentages of successful quarterbacks that are drafted early and thrown right into the fire. I mean, not many of them are successful right out the gate. It takes a couple years.
Especially in Cleveland.
True. They've went through quite a bit of them in recent history.
There's like a laundry list of them.
There is a jersey somewhere. I forget where it's at. It's in like the main drag to the stadium. There's a jersey, and like it's literally just a bunch of names of quarterbacks crossed out, and it's all the different Browns quarterbacks they've drafted over the years. I think the only quarterback that has been successful, unfortunately for the Browns organization, was like the 80s when you had Bernie Kosar.
Right.
So they've been waiting a long time for somebody to finally be a quarterback worthwhile in that offense. So
I don't know. In this situation, I don't think it's him. I think he likes Tyrod, but he's just talking up the quarterback that's the starter right now.
Well, yeah.
If Mayfield's the starter, you know what? He'll say the great things about Mayfield. He just wants the ball.
Well, he's crossing his T's, dotting his I's. He's checking all the boxes. I mean, because the guy is throwing the ball.
That's a lot of writing.
It is.
Checking.
I mean, you do what you got to do.
I'm just saying.
He wants the ball, so he's going to be friendly to the guy who's going to get him the ball.
I just think Tyrod gives him the best chance to win right now.
Right. I mean, you saw what he did, and we've talked about this, what he's done in that horrible offense that the Bills put out the last couple years. He took him to the playoffs.
Right.
So I'm just saying.
This team has more offensive talent than that team.
I think the problem with this team.
Could be his best offensive team he's had.
Right. I just think the problem with this team with the Browns is because I know it's as weird as it sounds to say, as the Browns actually have, I think, almost too much talent for what Tyrod Taylor does. He doesn't throw the ball a ton. They've got they're 3 deep at running back. They go 3 deep at wide receiver with Coleman, Landry, and Josh Gordon, and then they've got Njoku. I mean, they've got
Njoku's going to be a sneaky play this year, at least for fantasy purposes. I think so. Especially around the red zone.
It's just an interesting. I mean, over the past couple of years, we've joked about how poor the fantasy in general, the overall performance for the Browns have been. But finally, I think they've got an actual solid team. It's just if they can all put it on the field and make it work. Yeah. If they can do that, they've got enough talent to compete in that AFC North. I mean, there's a lot of question marks outside of Pittsburgh. So,
not my Bengals. We check off all the boxes.
Yeah, indeed. So, you know what? I forgot. We didn't do it last week, but there isn't any new news. But I figured we got to drop in our Des of our lives.
Oh yeah.
I'm about to enjoy what I always wanted to do. You know, it's a new chapter. You know, there's only one way I can look at it. You know, it's just time to move on and go on to the next.
The next couch cushion.
Like it.
Left or right, he's still sitting on the couch.
He almost sounds like a little Jarvis Landry right there. You know, if he just would have cried, we would have had the full package.
I feel like
he'll sign with somebody.
He needed that T.O. moment where he's like, instead of saying that's my quarterback, he needs to say, I need a quarterback.
Right.
So, anyways, alrighty. On to I think that's all we got, honestly.
Yeah, that is for that.
It's been kind of
a
slow season. I mean, camp has not started. Once camp hits, unfortunately, I think that the injury comments and notes are going to start rising because the s'mores are going to be.
Oh, wrong camp. You guys talking about training camp?
I can have s'more if you've not had any yet.
Now I'm hungry.
All right, let's get into the next segment, which is going to be the run pass option. This week, it's going to be players that we do not like, a.k.a. the swipe left.
No. Hard pass. Hard pass.
How about no?
All right. This week, run pass option, swipe left, is presented by Fantasy Fateball, the one and only Magic 8 Ball for fantasy football. 20 custom answers to help you make those critical start-sit decisions. In the Sunday morning agony, head over to fantasyfateball.com and use the promo code HATEFUL8 for $5 off your purchase. So, got a couple interesting names, some names that might make some people upset, but they are definitely guys that you need to keep your eye on, and players that we're not going to be drafting, and we've made it very clear as to why we're not, whether it's ADP, whether it's the offense that they're going to be playing in, or the
whether
fact,
we just flat out don't like them.
or we have personal vendettas that we are just not going to draft you because, well, you burnt me back in 2016 and you've never been the same. So, all right, who would like to go first in this group?
I'll go first.
All right.
I'm going to keep on the Cleveland train here.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to start with Cleveland's running back, Carlos Hyde.
Oh.
I know his ADP is the 7th round. He's the 30th running back. With me, it's a running back by committee there, and I want to avoid that at all costs.
Right.
I think him and Chubb are going to split that first and second down back. I think Duke Johnson secured that third down role, that pass catching back, and actually I think he pairs better with Tyrod. I think he'll have more packages, more role in this offense, which again is going to deplete from Hyde. Now, Hyde doesn't mean you totally don't draft Hyde. I'm just avoiding him because I think he's only going to have value in the first couple weeks. We'll transition to Chubb, and then it's done. Hyde, and everyone's like, we talked about on the show, what we harp on is that he signed this 3-year, $15 million contract, right? Well,
yeah, but there's an asterisk next to it.
It's only $5 million guaranteed. That's
right.
it. And then if he's cut before the third day of training camp next year, they only affects $2.3 million on the cap going forward.
Which is not a lot.
Which is not, no, when they got like $70 million to deal with, these guys got plenty of money. They're not worried about Carlos Hyde. So I think it's Carlos Hyde. We're looking for the future in Chubb. I just don't think his fantasy value is going to be there this year. So I'm avoiding him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree. I think whether it's the first couple weeks, whether it's the first quarter of the season, eventually Nick Chubb is going to be sprinkled into the mix between him and Hyde. And at that point, it's just all hands off, and you don't want anything to do with any of those guys because it becomes the running back by committee, which is what you're not wanting in any fantasy football spectrum. We'll just talk about running back by committee. So they're not guys that have their own clear-cut roles. Like Tevin Coleman has a clear-cut role in that offense with Falcons, and Devonta Freeman has a clear-cut role within the Falcons offense. They are two separate guys, and they both contribute fantasy-wise. The running back by committee is the guy that gets like 20 carries or gets 20% of the carries. Another guy gets 20% of the carries. Another guy gets 30% of the carries. Right. So
I'd even throw Mark Ingram and Kamara when they come back. Right. That's two different guys that both have their own established roles.
Right.
And proven that both of them can produce.
And then even in this offense, if we had, let's say it's just Hyde and Duke Johnson, they both have their own roles. So they have fantasy value that's totally separate. But now when you look at Chubb and Hyde together, they're going to take from each other.
When they went and signed Carlos Hyde, that was like, okay, cool. Now we've got Carlos Hyde who's going to be early down, going to step in what Crowell was doing. Now you've got Duke Johnson. They're probably going to sign him, and then you go and get Nick Chubb.
Well, they didn't know they could get. They didn't know they were going to get. Nick Chubb.
That's my point. But once they drafted Nick Chubb, immediately we were sitting there watching the draft. We're like, well, there goes Hyde's value. It just went right down the floor. Right. I mean, it was over. I mean, and unfortunately for Hyde, I mean, he is a talented back, and he was successful even with a struggling year last year in San Francisco. If it was just him and Duke Johnson, I would have no problem drafting Carlos Hyde. But at some point, you got to look at and it's going. You're going to see in preseason. You're going to see in camp and all the talk of, well, Nick Chubb is doing this well, or you're really going to have to watch the camp conversation. Right now, when you hear the conversations, anything positive is fine. It goes over my head. I don't care. It's no big deal. It's when you hear the negatives of camp, when like somebody's not doing well or somebody's just not transferring over to the NFL speed or whatever. But at this point, I'm not hearing anything out of camp, but I just think that eventually I think that unfortunately, I think Hyde's going to be the odd man out at the end of the year. I mean, unless Nick Chubb suffers some sort of injury or completely was horrible this season and struggled, like you could just tell he just did not mentally pick up the game this year. And then that, I think, helps Hyde. However, if Nick Chubb comes in and he dominates in the touches that he gets sporadically in the first couple parts of the year, because they're going to use him, it's just, I think Hyde's going to be the main guy for a while, for at least up to, I'd say at least a quarter of the season. Unless Nick Chubb is horrible, then I think it's going to be the whole season versus, but I think Nick Chubb he's going to be a good running back. It's just, he's got to get the opportunity. So I don't know, but I probably will not be drafting Carlos Hyde either, just because then you got to go get Nick Chubb 2, 3, 4 rounds later as a potential when the Hyde situation ends.
So my thing is, when you're drafting Hyde, you're probably looking at him as a fill-in guy. When you're your top guys are out, well, by that point, I think that's when Chubb's going to start eating into his value by that point. So to me,
so basically just wait and grab Duke Johnson late.
Right.
Love it.
I was going to say, if you have your heart set on drafting Carlos Hyde, I would say go ahead and go pick up like Mark Ingram in a couple rounds right around that time frame. So you got several games after, because he's going to, by that time that Mark Ingram comes back, Carlos Hyde will probably be out of his job that he's currently got. So, but I can't draft him. There's too many question marks in that between him and Nick Chubb. So, all right, who is your first guy for the
the vulture himself, Derrick Henry.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
His ADP is round 3, pick 7. He's RB 17 right now. Last year he finished RB 25 with 124 points. He split time with DeMarco Murray, who finished 23rd. So they were 23rd and 25th. Now he has to split time with Dion Lewis, who, by the way, finished RB 12 last year.
And was used a ton in the Patriots offense.
Right. Well, there was 3 running backs in the mix there.
True.
And he still finished ahead of all of them.
Yeah.
Without 2 games with 70-plus yard TD runs last year, it was Colts Week 6 and Texans Week 13. In garbage time, they were both under a minute. Henry would have finished 1 game over 10 fantasy points and 9 games under 5 fantasy points.
Oh.
Yeah, that's rough.
Oh, wow.
That's rough.
That is
I think
awful.
Lewis is going to have a bigger impact on the passing game, like you talked about with Duke Johnson. I think he fits better with Mariota, Dion Lewis, and their offense, and he's going to eat into Henry's touches.
Well, LaFleur likes it too.
Right.
The offensive coordinator loves these passing running backs.
That's what I'm saying. So I think he's going to shine, and he'll eat more into Henry's touches.
I agree.
I agree. I think that with that, Derrick Henry, I think, has a shorter give of before he's potentially pulled from his role. I think with Dion Lewis being signed in for the type of money that he was brought in for, I think that tells you that they don't think, like we said, Derrick Henry can do the pass catching, which is what LaFleur wants to be able to do as well. The other side of it is, I think if Derrick Henry continues to do well and produces in the opportunities that he's given and the split carries and whatever percentage it is, then I think he holds off Dion Lewis. But if he starts struggling, if he's not converting on those short yards, which is what he's supposed to be doing, or converting on the goal line, or he fumbles, I think that's when you see Dion Lewis start taking more chunks into, like you're saying, Derrick Henry's pie.
I mean, 9 games under 5 fantasy points for him.
That's
not going to do it.
I mean, I like his talent and his athletic ability, but unfortunately, the offense that he's in and the opportunities that he was given last year, it's not looking too good when you bring in a guy like Dion Lewis.
Yeah, because, I mean, I had DeMarco Murray for most of the season, and, like, he didn't produce that much either.
No, he was
if they didn't bust off big 65, 70-yard runs, their points were 8, 7, 8 all the time.
what was his touchdown total? 'Cause, I mean, he had to carry the value he did, or the season he did. He had to have decent touchdowns, and that's probably all he has.
Well, he is a touchdown upside guy. That's
I'll
the
look
thing.
that up.
What I was going to say is, so that's really all you're looking for. That's all you're getting here.
Right.
You're not getting the yards, so you got to rely on touchdowns, and that's
Right.
the hardest thing to predict is who's going to score. You know what I mean?
Right. And then for PPR purposes, I mean, this is what everybody mainly plays now anyway. Dion Lewis is the guy to have.
Yeah,
Oh, I agree.
Out of the two in the backfield for sure.
And Dion, and like we said, Henry's ADP is 3.7. Lewis is at 7.7, so you can get him 4 rounds later.
I'm all.
I'm
That's
going to make that same argument in my other guys.
Just like
That's
we
it.
said about Duke Johnson, you can
Yep.
get him later in the draft and get the same production, if
Yep.
not more.
right. You have the same upside potential as you do the guy who's getting drafted 3-4 rounds earlier. So
So that's
not?
why I'm going to avoid Derrick Henry this year.
Yeah.
It's not popular because I see him going in that 3rd, the 4th round in all these mock drafts, but I'm just going to stay away from
Well,
him.
there's a lot of people out there that are Derrick Henry truthers, and they're holding tight to that, the vulture being the guy, and that Dion Lewis is just going to be the fill-in guy or the pass-catching only guy, and that Derrick Henry's going to get most of the carries, or pretty much all the carries, all the goal line and everything, which he might, but I think eventually, I think he has more to lose than Dion Lewis does.
Right.
Agree.
I guess that's the thing. He's got it on his mind. I sat behind DeMarco Murray. I've now been given the job. However, they brought in Dion Lewis. Now they apparently don't think I can do that job, be the bulk and be the main only guy. And then now he goes into the season, and if he struggles, has any type of down games, then that creeps into his mind that, well, Dion couldn't just step in and do my. And Dion has a good game, so
5 touchdowns.
that's not good.
Yeah, jeez.
That's on one hand. That's bad.
Math.
Yeah.
Not Jason Pierre
How did he
Paul's hand.
finish 20?
You got to have like at least 2 hands to get those half ones in there.
Oh,
5, so not good. That's half a 10. Just so we're all on the same math.
so you don't even have the touchdowns going for him either.
No, like I said, it was a huge disappointment.
I guess the only thing in his favor is that Lewis is not known to finish a season.
True.
So that's about the only thing in his favor right now.
Well,
I agree with you, though.
I'd rather take Lewis 4 rounds later than take a gamble on Henry in the 3rd.
I completely agree. No argument from me.
So, alrighty. My guy is going to be Kenyon Drake. So currently he's going in the 4th round, towards the end of the 4th round. He's running back 21 off the board. Finished 2017 season as the running back 36. Now, granted, he didn't. I mean, I'll give him a little bit of credit. When he took over in the season from weeks 9 through 17, he actually was the running back 13. So he was doing well, but the problem is they still had several talented players offensively. Plus, they had, in my opinion, I know it's not by much, but they had a better pass throwing quarterback than Ryan Tannehill there. Ryan Tannehill being in there, the offensive line has been depleted, and I mean, it was just the defense is not going to be great. I don't feel like this year. It's just a bad situation for Kenyon Drake, and I feel bad. But in the weeks, I'll put it this way: in the weeks that he saw 50% of the snaps, which was like weeks 9 and not 10, which he saw under 50%, but then 11 through 17, like I said, he was running back 13 with 89 fantasy points, which is a pretty good stretch. However, through those 8 games, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, 537 rushing yards, and 1 receiving touchdown for 200 receiving yards. So he wasn't. I mean, he technically, I guess, if you want to take his numbers, he could have finished with 1,000 rushing yards and maybe 4 rushing touchdowns, but that's not exciting for a guy who's being drafted. In that running back 2 spot for you. Now, as I looked over their roster and their schedule, there's a pretty good chance that the Dolphins are going to be terrible on both sides of the ball, and they're going to struggle. Not just in the pass game, but the run game. The defense is going to be horrible, I have a feeling. And I just feel like they're going to be down a lot, so they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. So not a good situation for a running back when your team's continually having to pass because you're playing from behind all year.
That's good for Parker and Stills owners.
Parker, Stills, Amendola. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
Albert Wilson.
Drake catches, though, don't he?
Well, in the game, like I said, in the games that he played from weeks 9 to 17, he only had 1 receiving touchdown and 200 receiving yards. So,
Yeah,
not the greatest. They had Jarvis Landry though, so he was destroying in PPR. So, but per Adam Gase, now this is the head coach on the Palm Beach Post as of July 9th, so a couple days ago. He says, "We'll figure it out," in reference to the running back group. He says, in reference to the workload of distributing who's going to get what. He said, "This is no different than what we were kind of doing with Damian Williams and Kenyon last year. I mean, it's a long season. We got caught in a couple of situations last year where Kenyon was the only guy we had, and we had to take the majority of the carries. Really, that's not what we want over a 16-game season." So that tells you right there they don't want him being the main ball carrier. That's going to be tough. We'll make sure that we spread things out well this year. It says we'll use both of those guys the right way in reference to Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake. So Frank Gore was signed for $1.1 million for a 1-year deal to be a contributor. He's currently going as in the 15th round. So pretty much end of your draft. Pretty much.
He'll still give you 8 to 10 a game. That's my guy.
Right. Kalen Ballage, who was drafted
Next week's show preview.
Right. Kalen Ballage was drafted in the 4th round this year. He's going in the 14th round, so just a round earlier than Frank Gore. Now, the offensive coordinator, Dow Loggins, who I had to look to make sure that's his real name, stated that both Drake and Ballage can both play 3 downs.
Isn't there Kenny Loggins?
There is.
Highway to the danger zone.
I think they're brothers.
No.
He's not that important.
That guy's dropping Loggins in the toilet.
Yes.
As he's coaching.
Yes.
Jeez, that was a good one. I like that one.
This whole offense is dropping Loggins.
It is. Dow Loggins. For Kenyon Drake to be a fantasy relevant quarter or running back last year, it took Ajayi being traded and Damian Williams getting injured. That's a lot.
I just can't get over dropping Loggins.
Dropping Loggins here. So
I agree.
I'm just saying there was a lot to make the perfect fantasy relevant season for Kenyon Drake last year.
Kenyon Drake's not going to be your prom date. Is that what you're saying?
No, I am not taking him to the fantasy draft dance.
I kind of like Kenyon Drake though. Like I'm kind of looking over at him like, what's up?
What's up?
He's like, he ain't taking you. I would.
Man, whatever. You can have him. You can swipe right. I'm swiping left. All right. Who is?
A little tension in the room.
Go ahead and who's your final?
I got to transition. This is crazy. Anyways, my next guy I'm
We do
avoiding
every
is,
week, but whatever.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
Next guy I'm avoiding is Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek, the Freak Hill, as he's called, or a.k.a. Cheetah, is
Yeah.
what his handle is.
I did not know that.
I
Yep.
didn't either.
Because he's fast.
Now
Yeah,
I really
I get
don't,
it.
Now I really don't like him.
Go ahead. Why are you
Just
on
because his
the,
handle is better than mine.
Why are you swiping left and
Anyways,
not drafting
his
him?
current ADP is 3rd round, 9th pick. He's a 10th overall wide receiver. To me, that's way too high. He's your prototypical boomer bust guy. When he's booming, 30-point game.
Yeah.
He did that last year. You know what his bust was? 2-point game.
Oh, I'm aware.
That's like
Yeah.
a 28-point difference. That's a lot.
So the spin that I always see on him is he played 15 games. Can't count the last week. He didn't start.
Right.
So 7 games, he was 10 points or more. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Well, he had the other 8. He's under. 5 of those 8 are under 5 points.
Right.
Oh,
So you want that as your number 10?
No,
That's rough.
that's real rough.
Then there's the unknown, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, and Patrick Mahomes. We don't know what he's going to be. I think he's going to be a good, not great quarterback. I don't think he's going to throw the ball for 500 times, which means the receiving numbers are going to be down a little bit.
okay.
The also is we have the known commodities in Hunt and Kelsey with the new additions. Spencer Ware is an addition for me because he was out last year.
Right.
And then we got
Watkins.
Watkins. Thank you very much. And Watkins in there. All going to eat into targets.
Sure.
And like you just said earlier, how you can take a guy later. Watkins is a guy I think you can take in 8th round, 29th overall wide receiver. You can wait. His numbers are going to be comparable to Hill's this year.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of people all about Tyreek Hill, and they're like, yeah, well, he was great last year. He finished in the top 10, and da-da-da. It's like, well,
Because
yeah,
he had 2 games over 30 and
Yeah,
like
right.
3 over 20.
Well,
something.
congrats.
But that's it.
right. Congrats. So you played him for all of what you said, 15 games that
Yeah.
he started. So 15 games in your fantasy season, great. And only 7 of them he scored 10 points or more. Correct.
Right. Well,
That doesn't win you fantasy leagues, just so we're all aware. And you're having to draft him probably depending on your draft, either as your wide receiver 1 or your wide receiver 2.
Could you imagine pairing him? Like, think he's your wide receiver 1.
Yeah, you go 2 running backs, take him in the 3rd round as wide receiver 1. That's trash.
Yeah, especially if it's a dominated running back first couple of rounds. You need a point getter at that wide receiver.
Right.
And that's great. The weeks that he's on, he's perfect. But, I mean, if I had Alex Smith, I'd feel a little bit more confident in Tyreek Hill.
Right.
I don't have that. I have Mahomes. I don't know what I have.
Right. Well, and that's what we talked about. What was it, 2 weeks ago when you made
When
the
I had
comment
I had
when you talked about Alex Smith, and I said, or when you talked about Tyreek Hill and everything, and I was like, yeah, if Alex Smith was back, and we all agreed if Alex Smith was there, sure, I'd take Tyreek Hill at the point that he's going right now, but we don't. No,
Right.
we don't know what we're getting with Mahomes. We know what we're getting potentially, a guy who's going to go out there and throw the ball and be a gunslinger, as they called him, and he's got a talented, strong arm, so that's great. He's going to throw the ball down the field. However, double team on Tyreek Hill, pretty much, I'm guaranteeing at least majority, I'd say 75% of his snaps, he's going to be double teamed. And you got a guy who's a high-end boom bust, and like you said, with the numbers that you're looking at, and you got Sammy Watkins, who Andy Reid has complimented so far and said, we're going to move him around and use him the way that nobody has been able to find a way to use him to get the max out of him. So why wouldn't you take a guy like that? Great. He plays 4 games, he breaks a foot. Okay, no problem. Where's his ADP right now?
Is it round 8? Yeah,
Okay,
round 8.
eighth round. So by that point, he's probably your wide receiver 3
Well,
or
yeah,
4.
and you're not investing as much into
No.
him, so it's perfect.
So why not? I mean,
I totally agree with both of your picks.
I mean, that's dumb. Why would you take a guy that you're going to see potentially the same effect in a guy 6 rounds or whatever later?
Yep. It's because everyone just falls in love with names, and Watkins is a name that's kind of had trash thrown on it because he's been so inconsistent. But I think he's in a great offense now, and I think he'll be better than he was.
And if they're playing from behind because their defense is horrible, they're going to throw the ball more.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you take a guy who's getting moved around and probably seeing single coverage all day?
And Kelsey's going to draw a lot of attention too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's the 3rd option. I mean, he's technically, in all reality, he's the 4th option in that offense behind Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt in some fashion, and Travis Kelce. He's the 4th option, regardless of how you shift the 3 guys ahead of him. No?
You'd
Okay.
be the 3rd. You said
Yeah.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah.
We
knew what you meant.
He's the
though.
4th option
Gotcha.
in the offense.
Yep.
Whether it's by run or pass, he's the 4th option,
Gotcha.
regardless.
Now, look, I
So-
could be completely wrong. Mahomes comes and throws for like 9,000
I
yards
mean, he
and
could,
40
but I doubt it.
touchdowns.
I'm not
and
high on Mahomes either, to be honest.
I think he'll be a solid fantasy quarterback, but I think he's a streamer still.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that you're getting at the end of your draft that you took somebody probably early and you just took a quarterback early on, maybe like an Aaron Rodgers, and he's a guy that you potentially play on like a bye week. But outside of that, whatever.
Right.
All right, who is your other?
Mine-
This might be. Ooh, I feel the room getting a little warm in here, a little toasty with this next player that you're
I
going
need
to
to
mention.
separate you too.
No.
No, I'm on board with this. I understand where he's coming from, but
2 years ago, 2016, he was the number 1 wide receiver by 0.4 points over Jordy Nelson or whatever it was. Mike Evans. Okay?
ooh,
Last year finished top 20. He finished wide receiver 20.
okay. So he was the middle of the pack towards the back end of the wide receiver 2 spectrum.
Right. His current ADP is round 3, pick 4. He's the wide receiver 9, so a pick ahead of Tyreek Hill.
Why are people? Why?
He had 5 touchdowns all of last year, and we're drafting
If you're
on
not
name
guessing,
alone. Like
this
you
is-
just said,
this
we're
is
drafting
hatred.
on name alone right now. Same offense as last year,
Okay.
except James Winston will be out the first 4 games this year.
Okay.
But even when he comes back, I'm not even sure how good they'll be. So, I mean, I don't know. Tampa Bay was the second best team last year in receiving yards with 4,600. Evans had 1,000 of those yards. They were 10th in touchdowns with 26. Evans had 5 receiving touchdowns.
Ooh, well.
He had 7 games under 7 fantasy points. The running game's still a huge question mark. I know they took,
Ronald Jones.
yeah, but I don't know. They got Jaquizzi Rogers listed as the starter. You
Peyton
got
Barber's
Si-
there. Charles
yeah.
Sims. They got a couple guys still that they're trying to figure out who's going to be there. But
It'll be a Rojo show.
And here's the thing that gets me. We did a blind comparison show months ago.
Yep.
Okay?
Right.
We did the 2-year totals for my 2 guys that were blind comparisons. Mike Evans finished 50 points ahead of Marvin Jones.
over the last 2 years, yes.
Yes.
And Marvin Jones is going what? I think like the 7th or 8th
Round
round.
6, pick 7.
Oh, he's moved up.
He's the wide
Yep.
receiver 23.
People are getting
And
smart.
even last year, Robbie Anderson, he was wide receiver 16 last year. Marvin Jones was top 5 last year. He was
Right.
5th. Robbie Anderson's ADP's 11th round, pick 8. He's the wide receiver 44. Mike Evans burned me. I don't trust him. I'd rather go with Marvin Jones or Robbie Anderson late, and you'll still more than likely get the same production, unless he has just like a blowout year.
Well, I mean, you're seeing you're banking on the Mike Evans of what you said, 2016.
Yes.
So that's what I mean, and it's name. It's all name drafted. You're drafting Mike Evans on name alone. Now, I'm not saying that you don't draft Mike Evans. You personally will not draft Mike Evans.
Nope.
I'm just saying where he is going. There's still question marks in that offense enough to make me let him pass me on the 3rd round.
Yeah, and if you got Fitz or RG1 starting the first quarter of the season, I don't want no parts of that.
Oof, it could be rough.
It's not going to look good in Tampa Bay.
I'm just saying, and you're drafting him again as potentially a wide receiver, your wide receiver 1, depending on how your draft is
That
going.
would be your wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be mine.
Right, based on the way you draft. Yeah, I'm just saying, if somebody goes running back, wide receiver, then it'd be a
Right.
second. But still, your starters, your wide receiver 1, your running back 1, your running back 2s, and your wide receiver, those 2 positions, you want solid players with upside and value every week. The flex is the position that you want, that you
Boom
roll
or
the
bust.
is your roll the dice, or your, as in the Fast and Furious series, it's your NOS. That's the one that you want to hit the button and pray that you play the right guy. I'm just saying. That's what you're doing. But, I mean, for your first and second position for wide receiver and running backs, you want those guys to be a solid play every week. You don't want somebody who's going 10 points.
and if you miss
2,
on 'em, you're
12,
screwed.
Yeah.
3.
Listen, I know I traded for him last year, and I ended up playing Funches over Evans.
That's
Majority of
bad.
the year. That is bad.
That's a bad situation to be in. So I agree with you. I think it's a lot of question marks still in that offense. And with Jameis not being there, had Jameis been starting the season, I think I would have been more comfortable taking him in that point in the 3rd round, just because I think Jameis likes to throw the ball more to Mike Evans. However, with him missing the first 4 games, that's a good chunk of your fantasy season that you're relying on Fitzpatrick or Ryan Griffin or RG1. So just saying. You like that?
RG1.
So you're not passing on RG1 though, right?
No.
What?
He's your guy.
I don't want no Buccaneers.
There you do.
I don't even want
You want
Ronald
him
Jones.
and all the Bills players, and then you'll be good.
No, none of them.
All right, so my guy is going to be my final guy that I'm not drafting is Brandon Cooks, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, why? He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in LA. He's been successful. He was successful there in the offense and the Patriots. He was successful there with the Saints. Well, yeah, nothing against Jared Goff, but he played with Tom Brady, who is a top 3 quarterback of all time, in my opinion, somewhere in that fashion between him and Aaron Rodgers. Then you've got Drew Brees, who's another top, in my opinion, we'll say 6 quarterback of all time. So he played with really good quarterbacks that are going to go in the Hall of Fame.
Famers, right?
Yes.
Future Hall of Famers. He's going to Jared Goff. And I'm not saying that Jared Goff is not good or could not be good going forward. However, he is not to the point where Drew Brees and Tom Brady are in their quarterback career, I guess you could say. And the thing is, he finished 2017 as a wide receiver 8, which is fine. Had 9 games, though, under 10 fantasy points.
I'm aware.
That's not bad.
I had him.
That's not bad. No, actually, that's horrible.
Can I add to that? Because I looked up a lot of his stats, too.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
He had 6 games of 5 or less. So inside that 10.
Aware.
So he averaged just over 9.5 fantasy points a game. Just over 9.5 for a guy who finished as the wide receiver 8. So I'm just telling you, last year the wide receiver numbers were down because I went back the last 3 years and looked at the wide receivers, like fantasy points wise, and last year was the lowest that it had been in like 5 years for fantasy points. So why he was the wide receiver 8 was because all the other people were not doing well.
Right.
Just being honest as well. So, but his previous 2 teams, like I said, Brees and Brady were his quarterback. 2015 with Brees, he had 20% of the targets. Wide receiver 2 on that team, Willie Snead. Not a game changer. Willie Snead is a boom bust, like a late boom bust. Then in 2016, he had 17% of the targets. So you see him trending down. Michael Thomas was the rookie that year. So just saying, and Michael Thomas pretty much got him booted out of New Orleans.
Yep.
So
I think Brandon Cooks is a one-trick pony.
he is.
He's a
He's
down the
definitely
field
going to
guy.
be like that on this offense.
Because Cooper Kupp's going to be your
Possession
main guy
guy.
to get your possessions.
And red zone.
And don't forget about my guy Tyler Higbee. I mean,
No.
I'm just
Plant
saying.
the flag on top.
No, I'm just saying, but yeah, he's a stretch the field guy, and that's going to be his role. We talk about roles. That's his role.
Yep.
So to bump back up to the 20% targets in 2015 with Willie Snead, who's not a game changer. Danny Amendola was the wide receiver 2 last year with 19% of the targets to Cooks. So Goff 2017 stats, he had 487 attempts. Breeze last year Brady was 581 attempts. So that's the lowest attempts of a quarterback that Cooks has played with, and Goff only eclipsed 487. So with the current wide receivers, like you mentioned, Kupp, don't forget Robert Woods, and the guy they drafted last year with Kupp, Reynolds. I just think that the talent at wide receiver between Kupp and Woods already having some sort of chemistry with Goff helps them. I'm not saying Brandon Cooks won't have good games. I'm just saying on a consistent week-to-week basis, he's going to be a Tyreek Hill. He's going to be high, and he's going to be low. And Todd Gurley is on that team. Like we said, enough said.
Yeah, because he catches. I mean, he does it all. So.
Right. He's running. He's catching the ball. He's doing it all. And he was actually the lead receiver or reception guy for the Rams last year.
I believe it.
Kupp was number 2.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how about this? Comparing these two players, Kupp's numbers, he had 869 yards and 5 touchdowns. Cooks had 1,082 and 7. They're not
Mike
that
Evans had
far off.
1,001 and 5 touchdowns.
That's what I'm saying. And we're all talking about Cooks and these guys high, and Cooper Kupp's down here just almost with the same stats. He's 200 yards less, basically.
Right.
So, but the Rams defense being good again this year, I expect them to be in close games a lot, which then potentially creates less opportunity for shootouts or down the field throws continually. Now, Goff is really good. He was actually I think he was top 10 for down the field percentage for throwing the ball wise, completions. But I just think that's what Robert Woods can do that. Yep. That's my thing. It's not like he's the only down the field guy. So, but in 2015 with 169 fantasy points, he finishes the wide receiver 12. 2016, 168 fantasy points, wide receiver 8. Last year, 154 fantasy points. So you see him trending down in wide receiver 8 again. Now that tells me that the wide receivers that were playing last year did not score as much fantasy points as what we were seeing 2 years ago in 2015. So
I think Goff's going to have a little bit of a down year compared to last year too.
I just
His ADP's got him within the top 10. I don't see him finishing that way.
Yeah,
I think he's right outside. I think he's still a stream option personally, but
yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just saying, in my opinion, if I'm taking somebody not named Todd Gurley in that Rams offense, it's Cooper Kupp
Tyler Higbee.
or Tyler Higbee for him.
let's be honest. In the first round, you're taking Hopkins. We all know this.
Yeah, we already know.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just saying. So Cooper Kupp is the guy that I want because he proved last year being the wide receiver 1 for them, as Blackburn had called in the offseason. he said that this guy's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Rams, and he was. Now, he was number 2 overall receptions behind Todd Gurley, which is not a horrible thing to say when Todd Gurley blew it up last year. I mean, he was
He'll
good.
blow it up again this year too.
So it's going to be
Hopefully
interesting.
on my team.
I'm just saying, the guys that we the guys that we mentioned,
see.
the guys we mentioned this week are just guys that, whether it's ADP, the offense that they're going into, or there's some factors that are creating question marks for us as to why we would not be drafting them.
It's too rich. I mean, you can find guys. We all pointed out guys you can draft later, 4 or 5 rounds later, that's going to produce the same amount of points for you.
Yep.
Don't take the risk.
I mean, it's just it is what
Names.
it-
Stay away from the names.
Don't risk it for that biscuit.
No,
No.
you don't.
I mean, get yourself a solid player in the first round, solid player in the second round. I mean, your first 4 or 5 picks should be solid players that you're expecting to start every week.
Right.
Those are the guys that you're going to be your staple of your team. They're the ones that's going to carry you through the season. You don't want to draft somebody in the 3rd round and them completely bottom out and have games where we were talking about where they were up here and then they're down here, then they're up here, then they're down here. Because those are the weeks when they're down. Those are the weeks that you're losing, and you can't lose many games in fantasy football and make it to your playoffs.
No.
So
Look for the consistent players, because I know at the end of the year these guys have high rankings. But if they're not consistent, like Tyreek Hill, for example, who cares if he finished number 6 when he's got 2 points that one week? You know,
Right.
You don't want that. You're going to lose that week. You give me the consistent player that's around the 10 or 8 to 10 range. I'm happy with that.
great. You got the wide receiver 8 this past year.
Yeah.
Did he win you your fantasy playoffs or your championship? No. Then what did it matter?
Right.
Great. You drafted him in the 3rd round. He had one game where he was over 30 points. Every other game he was 10 or under. Congrats.
Right.
You can't afford not to. My first 2 picks last year were, my first round pick was Mike Evans. My second round pick was Jay Ajayi.
Yeah.
Solid.
Both of those guys
Solid.
bottomed out, and I was fighting for my, the
So you were scratching and clawing to get into that playoff, and you got in by
I
a
got
game.
in by 1 game. Like, I was at the bottom all year, and the last week I got out.
You made moves in the season
You just
through waivers and
listen,
trades.
Get on the running back train here.
Well, I tried.
He was behind.
However,
he was
comma-
the caboose between you and Thacker in the running back
You mad
drafting
that
train.
Gordon, Zeke, and Fournette ended on my team. Those 3 in that order. Then I
guy.
traded Zeke for Bell to
This
that guy.
Yeah.
This guy.
All I'm saying is you can't afford to screw up your first couple round picks, because
No.
if you do, if you screw up those guys, you're done.
And we understand injuries happen. You can't predict those, but
Right.
and we said this last year, you don't win your fantasy championship at your fantasy draft. However, you can lose your fantasy season at your fantasy draft.
True story.
You got to find the happy medium.
The difference is you gave yourself depth. That's why you still made the playoffs.
Correct. You didn't sell yourself.
mean,
I got lucky with Deshaun Watson, too.
Yeah, but you could have easily, though, with those 2 picks, been a whole world of trouble. And you dug yourself out of it.
Right. You made moves, you made trades, you made waiver pickups, you did what you had to do to continue to move forward. But that doesn't
You
always
didn't pull
happen.
a Patrick and go live under that rock.
There you go.
Nope, no starfish here.
No starfish. All right. We just want to tell you guys thanks again for all of you tuning in today's show, whether it's via the podcast or YouTube channel. Please check out our site, thehateful8ff.com, where you can check out articles. Most recently, our writer Jeremy Galtman at Galtman93 wrote about bringing your kids into the fantasy football spectrum and
I like it.
how to step-by-step kind of get them acclimated to playing fantasy football if they're interested. Also, we've got apparel there. Make sure you follow our personal accounts at jpickleTH8FF, at jblackburnTH8FF, and at ftrimTH8FF. Don't forget to join the average donation via the Patreon tab on the site, where you can get the 2018 draft loadout, whether it's the articles, the software. It's all there now. It's all been uploaded. We're ready to go. And the people that have already gotten their hands on it have said that this is awesome. It's crazy how much you can look into the stats and how much you can see the trends, whether it's up or down. So
Let us do the work for you.
Right.
that's what we're here for. So finally, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's been growing every week, and we appreciate the likes have been going up. The views have been going up as we're getting closer to the season, which is nice. So we do appreciate what you guys are doing, and the podcast numbers are continuing to go up. So,
Getting more comments, too.
yeah.
I'm 48 followers away on Twitter from 1,000, so let's keep that
like
up.
it.
Keep moving.
Blow up our Twitter page on your guys you're avoiding.
Yeah.
I don't even care if it's just because you don't like it. They
Right.
burned you one year. That's the best.
I mean, I think we'll probably put out a tweet after the show drops tomorrow, which will be Friday, or which will be Thursday. Sorry, Thursday, and we'll put out a tweet for say, hey, who are the guys you're not drafting, who or swiping left on? So
I like it.
Who's not getting your rose?
yeah, who's not taking your rows and not being asked to the fantasy football dance for you draft? Never mind. All right. Never mind. I'm done. All right.
Pickle's going to be over in the corner of that draft or that dance.
I am by myself. All right. So you guys, thanks again. We'll see you guys
Later.
next week.
One more time. There ain't no one like these three. You know you just heard Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli. Give the goods talking about nothing but fantasy football. Yeah, it's your year to dominate and to wear that ring. Prepare for the draft and dial in on your craft. Quarterback, the first round is a good choice, you ask? This guy's got first round pick, a favorite? Not so fast. He failed to tune into Hateful Eight. He's a chump finishing last.